So our next presenter is Dr. Eddie Ramirez, medical doctor, researcher, author, and international speaker. Dr. Ramirez's major research interest focuses on how food and lifestyle have the ability to prevent and reverse physical and mental disease. With over 165 publications and presentations in 93 different countries, he is a respected peer reviewer of a number of journals. His work has been featured in prominent media outlets like NBC, Telemundo, and he's authored several influential books, including Pandemic Busters and Rethink Food, which I believe you can find on the tables over there to the left, so check that out during the break, please. Dr. Ramirez is here today to enlighten us about the fires that destroy our health. What are we talking about? Inflammation. Dr. Ramirez, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation of being here in Minnesota. I'm a very busy person. I just got back from this 10-country speaking tour. And I can tell you this message of lifestyle medicine works worldwide. I do a lot of research. This is one of my latest paper. In this paper, we're documenting how hydrotherapy is one of the best things you can do to activate your immunity. In the old days, at the Mayo Clinic, they used to use these interventions of hydrotherapy. And the country worldwide that uses the most hydrotherapy happens to be the country of Finland. Anybody knows what the Finnish people do that is something very cultural? Sauna. Every single house in Finland has a sauna. Statistic tells us that there is one sauna bath for every 2 people in Finland. That's how many saunas they are. If you're not familiar with the sauna, it's basically a room made out of wood, and then you have some rocks that they heat by different ways, and then you put some water there, and that steam fills the whole room. Well, this is not a new concept. This image is more than 700 years old. You can see the indigenous people of Mexico using something similar to a sauna. You can see the man on the left there is putting some wood. That's heating up the room, and that is increasing the room next door. They used to call that the temazcal. And we know why it works. Learn this. Interference. Interference interfere with viruses. So when the levels of interference are nice and high, viruses have a hard time infecting you. In this published paper, you can see that when the body temperature reaches the 102 Fahrenheit, interference literally explode on your body, which is fantastic. And we saw this during the time of COVID-19. See, in Finland, the mortality there, 75% of the people that died of COVID-19 in Finland were foreigners living in Finland. See, the foreigners don't do the sauna bath as religiously as the Finnish people do every single week. They have to go to that sauna bath. So I went to Finland last year in the winter, and I told my friends, I want to do the sauna bath the way the Finnish people do it. So we went down to the frozen lake with the chainsaws, started cutting the blocks of ice. That was a lot of work. These blocks were nice and thick. And then we turn on the sauna bath, and then bam! Then you count 1, 2, and 3, and down we go, you know. This is something that the Finnish people call fun, you know. That's their definition of something fun to do. So I have a book, it's called Pandemic Busters. It's not about pandemics, it's about immunity. You can find it there at the end. The way the book is written is like an infographic the whole way. Notice the quotation I found from Finland, a home without a sauna is not a home. Every home in Finland needs to have that. So in hydrotherapy, talking about forest bathing, talking about zoonosis, and so forth. 22 things you need to be doing to have good whole health. And let me give you this information from the beginning. All my research, more than 160 research project. You can find them there on that ResearchGate page. Just Google Francisco, which is my other name, Ramirez ResearchGate. I also have a very active Twitter account, EddieRDMD. Videos in multiple languages there in that YouTube page. And if you want to come and travel with me around the world, there is that Instagram page so you can see what I am seeing around the world. Things that I put in my Twitter account. Look at this interesting study. If you don't do exercise, that is worse for you than being a smoker, having diabetes, and having heart disease. That's how bad it is for you not to do exercise. In fact, look at this one. You can predict how long somebody is going to live by how much exercise they can do. You put somebody on a treadmill, and how much exercise they can do predicts how long they will live. Look at this other one, Journal Nature, top journal in the world. We're seeing a tremendous increase in cancers among young people. This is very worrisome. Notice that every single one of the factors that the researchers identify are things we can literally change. Use of alcohol, not sleeping enough, smoking, obesity, and eating those highly refined foods. This other one, longest living male on earth, they ask him, what is the secret of your longevity? He says two things. Number one, don't get angry. When you get angry, you generate the oxygen-free radicals, which literally age you and shorten your life. It's not worth it. Second factor, always smile. Smile is good for you. You generate all these waves of good chemicals when you are smiling. So let's talk today about how to stop the fires of inflammation. See, we have a very interesting pattern worldwide. It is called a geographical pattern of disease. We find certain places on earth where we find a lot of disease. At the same time, we find some other places where disease, you have the problem, but it's more rare. For example, regarding cancer, where is America here in the map? Number one place in the world. You know, there's some things that we're number one and we should be very proud as Americans. But this one is not one of them, you know. And the reason being is that we have the wrong lifestyle and we're really good at exporting it worldwide. Now, the same pattern you find with diabetes, you find with obesity, and let's put some numbers to it. Compare the amount of prostate cancer in America versus Bangladesh. Tiny little difference? Humongous difference. And this has to do with having an inflammatory lifestyle. Let me put it in this study. This is journal Nature. They were documenting what is happening with the immigrants from Japan, which they happen to have low rates of breast cancer, as they move to America. Let me explain to you the findings in this graphic. This is the first generation. This is how much breast cancer those first immigrants from Japan had as they moved to America. Very low. The higher the graphic, the higher the cancers. Look at what happens to their daughters. It actually doubled the rate of cancer as they started absorbing the lifestyle of the Americans. This is the daughters of the daughters. This is the daughters of the daughters of the daughters. Where is this going? See, things start to get worse as we start absorbing the lifestyle of the Americans. So we can actually explain most of those problems by the concept of inflammation. What is that inflammation? Well, I want you to remember the last time you poked yourself with a needle. Anybody here has done that? All of us, isn't it? Now I want you to remember the experience. How did it feel? Man, it was so pleasurable sensation. It felt so good, isn't it? What do you feel? Pain, first symptom of inflammation. The reason why you have pain, we have been programmed so that when you feel that injury, you pull out your hand and you avoid further damage. Any change in the temperature of that finger? Warmness, second symptom of inflammation. Any change in the color of that finger? Redness, third symptom of inflammation. And any change in the size of that finger? Swelling, fourth symptom of inflammation. The reason why you're having that is because of the following. See, inside your cells, you have something by the name of arachidonic acid. Anytime you break cells in your body, you release the arachidonic acid and you start creating this cascade of biochemical reactions that create that inflammation. It doesn't matter if you twist your ankle, you break some cells. If you burn, you break some cells. If you poke, you break some cells. Anything that damages your cells starts creating that cascade of inflammation, which starts the healing process. Without inflammation, you wouldn't heal. Now, these four symptoms, we have records from physicians from the first century after Christ, and they documented those four symptoms back then, more than 2,000 years ago, which were calor, which means heat, dolor, which means pain, rubor, which means redness, and tumor, which means swelling. Now, anytime you injure your body will respond with inflammation. Now, a very wise physician from Germany by the name of Dr. Virchow started making an interesting analysis. He realized that most of the patients that he was seeing as a medical doctor, the root of those diseases happened to be something that he called chronic inflammation. It is an inflammation that keeps going and going and going. The body has a hard time stopping that, and that is the cause of arthritis, of dementia, of cancer, of asthma, and the list keeps going and going and going. It is the root cause of that. Also, some authors add a fifth symptom called functiolacia, or loss of function. And see, before you end up with cancer, you have to have something that we doctors call the itis. Have you heard that we doctors use a lot the word itis? Oh, you have colitis, you have pneumonitis. Itis means inflammation. And if you don't solve that inflammation and that keeps going, you can end up with something very nasty. Before it was cancer, it was itis. Now, COVID-19, guess what it caused in the body? The answer starts with an I. Inflammation. In fact, we could actually predict who was going to get themselves really big trouble with that COVID-19 if they already had chronic inflammation. And they catch this bug because COVID-19 causes inflammation. Let's do the mathematics. Inflammation plus inflammation equals what? Even more inflammation. And that's why these people that end up there in the ICU, we have to be dealing with those tremendous levels of inflammation that could severely damage their bodies. I have this book at home. Notice the interesting title of the book. It's called Inflammation. It's caused by the way we live, by our lifestyle, and that is the source of chronic disease. But notice the interesting subtitle. It's a what type of link? A silent link. And this is the biggest problem with chronic inflammation. See, when you have chronic inflammation, your body, instead of doing useful things with your energy, such as making you think straight and so forth, starts wasting your energy with that chronic inflammation. That's why the person has very little symptoms, such as tiredness, such as foggy head, and so forth, as the body is wasting the energy instead of using it in a useful way. But other than that, they don't have much other symptoms. And they think everything is okay. But they may have tremendous levels of inflammation. See, there's certain health problems that they hurt really badly. For example, if you fall down and you break a bone, I don't care how courageous you are, you're going to be knocking at my ER in a few hours and saying, "Doctor, this hurts really bad. Please do something about it." Take an x-ray, sure enough, nothing is broken there, and that's why it was hurting so badly. But many times, the inflammation is the body, and the person doesn't realize because there's not major symptoms of it. As researchers put the analogy with inflammation and fire. Is it a good idea to play with fire? No, don't play with fire because you're going to burn. Notice Time magazine, how it titled inflammation. The what type of killer? The secret killer. It's killing you and you don't realize it. I see this with patients. I do complete, analysis of what's their current habits of the patient. I do some blood test, and then I can see that the patient has chronic inflammation. I sit down to talk to the patient and tell him, look, we need to do some changes because I can see there's some inflammation going on. And there's a subgroup of patients that are going to tell me, changes? Me? No, I don't need to make any changes. I feel okay. There's no need for me to make changes. But they don't realize that the fires of inflammation are literally destroying and shortening their lives. Those fires within you. Inflammation is the body's first defense against infection, but when it goes ugly, it can lead to heart attacks, colon cancer, Alzheimer's, and a host of other diseases. And this is the way that I like to explain it to my patients. See, I live in Pennsylvania, just like Minnesota. It gets nice and cold there. And having one of these devices at home is very nice. That provides heat so you can actually operate and live there, throughout the winter and so forth. But that device, the way it's designed, is that the fire should be inside of the fireplace. Yes or no? What happens if the fire starts creeping out of it? You're going to get yourself in really big trouble. Same thing with inflammation. What if I have a bunch of wood and I start putting wood there and wood and wood and wood to the point that the wood is piling outside of the fireplace? What's going to end up happening? Sooner or later, that fire is going to creep out and you are going to be in really big trouble. Disaster is going to be the result of that. So that's a very important message of today. Don't put too much firewood on your fireplace because you are going to get yourself in trouble. What are some of those common sources of chronic inflammation? Cigarette smoking, very inflammatory. I'll show you a study in a minute. Alcohol, in any of its forms, it is extremely inflammatory. In fact, you can even do the experiment in your own home. Go to your favorite pet store, get yourself some mice, get the beverage of your choice, let's say wine, paint that wine in the skin of that mouse many times in a day, and in a few months, you're gonna have a cancerous tumor. And you know why? The answer starts with an I. What's the answer? You create unopposed inflammation that change that itis will change those cells, and you're going to get yourself in really big trouble. This is a published paper, British Medical Journal. Alcohol must be recognized as a carcinogen. In fact, there's another published paper, how the alcohol industry organizations misled the public about alcohol and cancer. They spend millions of dollars changing the perception of it. Don't be a victim of it. A bottle of wine has the cancer-causing potential of what? 5 to 10 cigarettes. Alcohol is killing more people than the opioid epidemic. Why we're not talking about it? Another thing is sunlight. Excess sunlight is not good for you. Sunlight is great, but not too much. Look at this one. This lady, 92 years old, she was using protective UV cream in her face, but not in her neck. And you can see what happened with the excess sunlight. Any form of animal product. Why is that? Well, when you're eating a piece of chicken, what are you eating? You're eating cells from the chicken, yes or no? What's inside those cells? Arachidonic acid. So you don't necessarily need to poke or burn or twist as you eat that excessive arachidonic acid. Your body starts that process of inflammation. And also, excess body weight is also inflammatory. So let me go here quickly. Having too much body weight, specifically belly fat, that is very inflammatory. Show me the cancer, I'll show you its relationship with obesity. Why is that? Because that excess body weight is very inflammatory to the body. And this is one of our patients. This is a patient that came to our lifestyle center. Classic patient that comes to us. Patient had diabetes. Patient had high blood pressure even though he was taking multiple medications. Patient had a severe problem with his weight. He was weighing 381 pounds. In only 18 days of following the healthy lifestyle, he was able to lose 16 pounds. We had to stop all his medications. Notice his blood pressure came down to normal levels. He continued at home doing the changes, and in a matter of 11 months after making those changes, cholesterol's normal, and also hemoglobin A1C of 5.5. It means he is no longer a diabetic. Is that good news or bad news? Good news. You know, I have 24 years of working in these places. I've seen this over and over. And you can see the end result here. After losing 141 pounds, no longer obese, no longer hypertensive, no longer diabetic. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because patients get better. So this is a nice summary of inflammation. So alcohol, we mentioned, very inflammatory. UV light, stress, cigarette smoking, virus, bacteria, the way you cook, and pollution. My favorite childhood memory is my back not hurting. Guess why the back hurts? The answer starts with an I. Inflammation. Through inflammation, you create atherosclerosis. Through inflammation, you create osteoarthritis, and you get yourself in really big trouble. Coffee and inflammation, not the best thing. Now, in lifestyle medicine, there's a principle. If something is addictive, it's not good for you. I never seen somebody addicted to broccoli. See, broccoli is not harmful, it's not addictive. But if you drink coffee every day and you stop it, what's going to happen? See, there you go. You know, the slaveness there of this liquid. coffee drinking and cancer risk. This is my study showing that coffee is related to higher levels of inflammation. Ultrasensitive C-reactive protein, that is how you measure inflammation. So watch out. Sleep, not sleeping enough, is inflammatory. Sugar is inflammatory. Sitting too long is inflammatory. Trans fats are inflammatory. Gingivitis is inflammatory. And in closing, I want to show this study. Fascinating study. In this study, they were showing two groups, both of them fasting overnight, and one group continued fasting for control purposes, and the other ate the following breakfast that is inflammatory. Consisted of white bread, which is inflammatory, cheese, which is inflammatory, egg, which is inflammatory, sausage, which is inflammatory, and fried potatoes. Notice what happened when they ate this breakfast. As soon as they ate that, inflammation exploded in their body. Now, if you're going to eat this once a year, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're eating that every single day, inflammatory breakfast, inflammatory lunch, inflammatory supper, what are you doing? Wood and wood and wood, and sooner or later the fires are gonna come out and inflammation will happen. The association between animal product consumption and cancer was as strong as that linking tobacco and cancer. So watch out. 1 kilogram, in other words, 2 pounds of char-grilled steak is equivalent to smoking 600 cigarettes. Tremendously inflammatory. So as we start stopping this inflammation, how are you going to do it? Where is the fire extinguisher? Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. You need to run to the farmer's market. There you're going to find the extinguisher. Fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and the principle is spices that are not spicy. If they're spicy, they're going to be irritating, and if they're irritating, what's going to cause? Inflammation. Watch out for that. So at the end of the day, your quality of life will be dependent on the roots that are under there. What are your current habits? Are you having a healthy lifestyle, or are you promoting chronic inflammation in your body? It's interesting to me that in the Bible, in the very first book of the Bible, in the very first chapter of the Bible, the answer is there. I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, there will be what? Your anti-inflammatory food. It's been there from a long time. So may you choose that anti-inflammatory food, which will give you the best results. Thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Wow.